Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about Cuba. Things are really, really bad over there, and people are leaving that island by the thousands every day, and they haven't had electricity in months. They are going through a starvation. A lot of people on the island um, lost their homes. They said there's a lot of people sleeping on the streets over there because they couldn't afford to pay for their homes. The jobless rate is very high. So they are really going through it. So I want to show you an article. This one came out about 6 days ago. Let's see here. Okay. So this article came out about 6 days ago. Now, I spoke about this maybe a month ago about the conditions on Cuba. Y'all, it is getting worse. It is getting worse. And those people are right now running for their lives. They literally are running for their lives. And Donald Trump is deporting them back there. So their power grid in Cuba has failed. So it's a total failure. It is completely gone. So they have no power. And they already said, and this is when Maduro was still in office, they said without the oil, Cuba would completely collapse. Starvation is going on. And, they've had embargoes on them for several decades. That's why they're driving around with those 1950 cars because that's when the embargoes went into effect and they haven't had vehicles come over there like that since. That's why they got to keep them cars going. So, anyway, now that Maduro is not in office, Donald Trump is now hanging the oil over Cuba's head. And he's going to do what his people have done for centuries. He's going to exploit the situation because they're in a desperate situation. And they heavily right now depend on that oil. And they're already practically, that island is practically gone, y'all, for real. No power. Food is scarce. Many, they said a lot of them are sleeping on the streets now. And on top of that, Donald Trump is deporting them back. So it is an absolute mess in Cuba right now. It is dire. And Donald Trump is now getting ready to exploit the situation. He's now hanging the oil over their heads. And more than this is what they do. They always exploit a situation. So that's what he's in the process of doing. And usually when they talk like that, he's going to demand more money out of Cuba for the oil. Money they probably don't have. But Donald Trump is pretty much saying, you do what I say, or I'm going to withhold the oil from you, type thing. You know, that's why you demons can't procreate. That's why. The Most High ain't going to let you procreate on this earth and bring more demons on here. But this is the nature of the beast, y'all. So, Cubans, man, I tell you what, when I was uh when I was a teenager, my grandmother and a couple of my aunts got into a really bad car accident. The car flipped and everything. Their car actually rolled over. One of my cousins, she died. And but everybody else in the car survived. And this all got caused by a white woman that cut them off on a highway. That's how the accident happened. Well, my grandmother, she broke her hip And one of my aunts, she was unconscious. She didn't wake up for almost a whole week. She was unconscious. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, the woman that was the physical therapist to my grandmother and got her back on her feet walking was an Afro-Cuban woman. She was a dark-skinned, woolly-haired Afro-Cuban woman. And we met, and she and I clicked right away. We did. She and I got along real well. And this woman was so incredible. She was by far the nicest Cuban I ever met in my life. I remember when my grandmother had to go through her physical therapy, she was in pain, just from doing all the exercises she had to do because her hip was broken. When my grandmother cried, this therapist cried right along with her. She was shedding tears, and she says, I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to get you back on your feet walking. And she sure did. She sure did. My grandmother was back on her 2 feet walking. Not only was she back on her 2 feet walking, y'all, she wasn't even walking with a limp. That's how good this woman's therapy was. But she was an Afro-Cuban. I will never forget her. So anyway, this is horrible what's going on over there. And it seems to be getting worse. And these Cubans, they said, are going any place they feel they can be accepted. That's how bad it is for them in this place right now. So I want y'all to listen to Donald Trump and what he is saying. He is definitely exploiting the situation. He knows this is going on there. If we know, he knows. You can best believe it. All right. So I want to share my screen so I can show you these videos. She had a little fro, and it was beautiful though. She had a short fro. She was dark-skinned. The woman had the most beautiful heart on a human being. She was a sweetheart. But I know they're not all like that. Trust me, I've encountered the white Cubans before, and they're like the total opposite. Those are the ones you don't want to encounter. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. All right.
Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me. Yeah. You know why? Because they kill a lot of people. Yeah. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
I have.
They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down.
All right, this is insane, guys. The U.S. just moved 2 warships near Cuba, and Trump is basically hinting a new leader for Cuba. Trump just posted today, Cuba will get 0 oil and 0 money from Venezuela. 0, he said. And then he warns Cuba, make a deal with the U.S. before it's too late. Now, reports say the U.S. repositioned 2 massive assault ships, USS Iwo Jima and USS San Antonio.
I just want to say this. Maduro, when he was still running Cuba, I mean, not Cuba, Venezuela, do you know he gave Cuba, not only did he give Cuba oil, he gave Cuba money. He was helping them out because he knew they were doing bad. So he didn't worry about whether they could pay or not because they were in such dire shape. So Donald Trump is saying they're not getting anything. So, yeah, so he's exploiting it. He's going to let those people fall and let that island go into complete chaos. It's already there. But you heard what he said, right? They're not going to get no oil. That's what he said. But Maduro was giving them oil and he was helping them out by trying to give them money. Now they're not going to get none of those things. So Cuba is as good as gone. All right, let's get back to the video.
The water's just miles north of Cuba. These aren't normal ships, guys. These are marine deployment ships. Cuba's president responded back to Trump saying the US has no moral authority to lecture Cuba and that Cuba will choose its own political model. Now, wait, this is the wildest part right now. Trump responded to a post on X saying Marco Rubio will be president of Cuba. And Trump responded to that saying, sounds good to me. Oh, shit. So think about this. Oil cutoff threat. Warships moving near Cuba. Cuba responds. Trump basically jokes about a new Cuban president. This looks like a maximum pressure bordering on regime change messages. Now, the question is for you guys, is Trump bluffing right now? Or is this about to turn into a real crisis? Another crisis, the top of Iran, top of Greenland, top of Venezuela. Well, comment down below. Comment down deal if you think Cuba negotiates with US, or comment escalation if you think this gets dangerous for everyone. Well, I just break this whole story to you on my YouTube page. So feel free to come to my YouTube page, subscribe and watch it there, guys. The long story where I break everything down for you guys. So subscribe, comment down below. Let's talk. Let's go.
Breaking news just coming in that Donald Trump just gave Cuba an ultimatum. Either you make a deal now before it's too late, or you are going to face the consequences. Not one drop of oil and not one help with financial aid will go into Cuba if they don't strike a deal immediately. For all intents and purposes, Cuba will be completely shut down. But don't you understand what this president is doing as Russia and China have the ambitions of taking over the world? He is securing a fortress around the United States of America by purchasing Greenland right off the East Coast and securing Cuba that Russia can never go in there again. That almost guarantees the safety and security of all of our families on the East Coast. But did you see what Donald Trump said the other day? That he had a greater calling other than making money? That almost like God has spoken to him and said that I have appointed you to be the leader of the free world? That only through me that you are going to bring peace to every single nation that is in your grasp. This is not the United States of America against Russia and China. This is the United States of America against anybody who attempts to take our freedoms away. To the traitors that are living amongst us in our very own backyard, you will be held accountable and responsible for the horrible things that you have committed against the people of the United States of America. To the illegal immigrants that came here, that made the decision not to assimilate, pack your bags and get ready, because you're going home. To the organizations that you think that you are going to continue to bring terror to my family and all of my brothers and sisters and patriots over here in the USA, our president and our forces are aware of every single one of you, and where you are camping out and where you are holding your base. You can't hide in Dearborn, Michigan. You can't hide in the beautiful state of Minnesota. You can't camp out on the West Coast in California. There is no sanctuary for you in Ohio. And we sure ain't going to continue to allow this to go on in New York City. Mr. President, I know you for a long time, and I have to tell you that I am so proud of you of what you have become. Godspeed, Mr. President, and let's free them all.
Threats against Cuba have been ramped up this morning in Trump's new Truth Social post. Check it out. Trump says Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security service for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of those Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack, and Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from the thugs and extortionists who held them hostage for so many years. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the most powerful military in the world by far, to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Venezuela was the main supplier of oil to Cuba until Trump cracked down on it last year, and they've had to turn to Mexico for their oil now. So we'll see what happens here. This is going to really harm the economy in Cuba, but Trump is ramping up his threats. He wants Cuba to make some sort of deal, but what does he want? What does he want from Cuba besides regime change? How are they going to do that peacefully? There's no real way forward for that I can see. But he posted this too, saying Marco Rubio should be president of Cuba. Now, Marco Rubio has long wanted regime change in Cuba. His family's from there. This is something else that could happen here potentially very soon. And we know that they're looking at plans to do something there. It seems the old days of the United States being an imperialist nation are back under President Trump. It's not America first, it's America last. He should be focusing here on the issues we have, not trying to run Venezuela, Cuba, and Greenland. Let me know if you agree. Comment, like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
He said on Truth Social, quote, Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it is too late. The president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, took to X to push back on the administration, writing in part, quote, Cuba is a free, independent, and sovereign nation. No one dictates what we do.
The US president has issued a string of warnings to the Latin American country. In a Truth Social post, he described how Cuba has lived on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela over several years. He claimed that Cuba had provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators in return. The president then vowed that there would be no more oil going to Cuba, saying, I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Hitting back, Cuba's foreign minister, Bruno Rodriguez, accused the US of threatening world peace and emphasized that Cuba had the right to import fuel from any markets willing to export it. It comes after Trump said last week that military intervention in Cuba wouldn't be necessary because the state is ready to fall on its own. He said he didn't think the US needed to take action because the nation was already going down.
Donald Trump believes Cuba should make a deal with the United States. Writing in a post on Truth Social, the US president says Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. Venezuela now has the United States of America to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it is too late.
Well, breaking fuck the news. After Donald Trump jokingly said that Marco Rubio will be the next president of Cuba, he stated that Cuba will receive no money or oil from Venezuela anymore. This comes after the United States has already made the new president of Venezuela agree to send 30 to 50 million barrels of oil. He told the island nation of Cuba, because they were apparently, this is what Trump's saying, were receiving oil, and in turn they were providing security services for Maduro and his presidency. that they will no longer be receiving any of that oil, any of that money. He's essentially what he's doing is he's holding this island nation hostage. Everybody, he's holding Cuba hostage. Venezuela was the number one supplier of oil. Being that Venezuela was the number one supplier of oil to Cuba, Donald Trump is single-handedly stripping this island nation of one of the main resources that they were able to receive from a nation that was not that far away. So not only has Cuba already dealt with decades long of U.S. sanctions, now they will be stripped of one of the last few resources they possibly could have, while the president of the United States is threatening to pick a random American to be the president of the country. What the fuck are we doing, America?
No, what it is imperialism is back. So Cuba can't have no oil, which they said is the only thing that's helping them right now, going through really bad times, or they have to accept regime change, and it has to be somebody that Donald Trump picks to be the president over Cuba. So if they don't comply to Donald Trump, they can have no money and no oil, and they're already starving on the island. And remember, they don't have no oil now because the last couple of vessels that were headed there when Maduro was still in office, the U.S. intercepted those tankers. So they never did make it to Cuba. They never made it. You know? So Donald Trump is not making himself stronger by colonizing all over again. It's going to actually weaken him. See, we're past those times of colonizing countries. That's why everything is failing, if you notice. Everything for Donald Trump is failing. Everything is failing in this country because of his tariffs. And nobody will buy U.S. goods anymore because they moved on to China instead of dealing with Donald Trump and his tariffs. Y'all, and now with Venezuela, Donald Trump ran his mouth talking about, oh, the major oil giants will come and invest. And they all told him this past Friday, they're not going to invest in Venezuela. They're not going to do it. So, yeah, you might have grabbed these things up, but you're not having a good time finding anybody's willing to invest in Venezuela. He's not finding anybody that wants to invest in Venezuela right now. That is indeed a curse. Yeah, he may make Cuba fall and try to go in there when they're fallen and desperate and they're hungry and need help. He go in there and give them a president. But I promise you, Donald Trump, colonizing is over. It's not going to turn out the way you think. You might be grabbing these places, but it's not going to be the way you think. No, sir, it won't. It will not be the way he thinks. So, you know, y'all, this is just the beginning. Cuba is the first island to starve. It's going to be more following. And you're going to have a president just like now. Donald Trump is literally watching these people fall. And he just said he's not giving them any money and he's not giving them any oil. So technically, he's just sitting back and waiting for the whole thing to collapse, which they're not far off from at all. They're not far off from falling at this point. Well, the U.S. can't dominate the world anymore. They got their chance to be a superpower in the world. Okay, so they're not getting any more opportunities. See, that's what these folks don't get. When the house of Edom, along with all these other Gentiles, start falling, there is no more chances. There is no more chances. Donald Trump grabbing a bunch of nations is not going to save any of you from the judgment that's coming. You're still going to have to live through that judgment. So, no, he's not strengthening anything. He's not. He may think he is. He's not. He's not. He's just going to be sitting with countries that nobody's going to help him with. And then you already got a situation with Greenland, the EU, and many of the NATO nations already said they're going to use military force if Donald Trump tries to take Greenland. So it is about to turn up in 2026. It is about to turn up really bad. Donald Trump is just making the judgment on America worse. That's all he's really doing. And it just goes to show you, you can't get that colonizing out of their system. That is a permanent thing. You cannot get that out of these people. You can't get that out of them. This is their nature. This is who they are. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate our time together. And the link for donations is at the top. And again, I see a few people did donate today. I deeply thank you, and may the Most High bless you tenfold. So, y'all, I might have another live coming in a couple of hours. So just be on the lookout. Be on the lookout, family. Shalom.